Hey everyone, this is Mr. VA, and for this video we are going to talk about how to find the trig ratio of any angle within the unit circle, or more generally any trig ratio between 0 and 360 or 0 and 2 pi, depending on talking degrees or radians. I'm going to preface this video by saying if you choose to memorize the unit circle, as I have up here on the screen, if you choose to memorize this as your method for doing these problems, that's going to be it. You're just going to use those memorized values to answer the question. This video, on the other hand, is going to be looking at more of a problem-solving approach of how these values come to be and where they come from, in case you do not remember all parts of the unit circle. And basically what we're saying now is, instead of memorizing that entire unit circle, I'm going to have us memorize these three things instead. Our special right triangles from earlier in the course, 45, 45, 90, 30, 60, 90. The ASTC sign relationship between sine, cosine, and tangent. What's positive, what's negative, depending on what quadrant you're in. And then the last thing, and this one's going to help a lot with reference angles, is that any angle that's given to us as a simplified radian, and if it's something pi over 6, we're going to know that that is 30 degrees away from the horizontal. Something pi over 3 will always be 60 degrees from the horizontal, and something pi over 4 will always simplify or be 45 degrees away from the horizontal. Now that is when it's simplified. So for example, 3 pi over 6 is not simplified. That's pi over 2. That takes us to a different realm that we're not going to talk about in this video. So if a fully simplified radian value has a 6 in the denominator, its reference angle is 30. So we're going to go through a few examples. I'm just going to pick a couple scattered examples on this note page called Finding Trig Ratios with Unit Circle, and then we'll kind of tag team. I'll have you pause at certain points and try some of these out yourself. So let's go through a couple of these. The ones with the red X are the ones we've not covered yet and will not cover in this lesson, so keep that in mind. Let's start with number 2. I'm going to pick some evens here to begin. So number 2 says sine of 2 pi over 3. So if we're looking at thinking about this, the first important thing we need to figure out is, where is 2 pi over 3 located? So 2 pi over 3 is just smaller than 1 pi, but it's bigger than pi and a half. That puts me in quadrant number 2, okay? So we're looking at an angle in quadrant number 2. 2 pi over 3, as I mentioned from our trig need to knows here at the top, if it's over 3, that means it's 60 degrees away from the horizontal. So that's telling me that this reference angle right here is 60 degrees. What that means is that the sine of 2 pi over 3 is the exact same thing as sine over 60, barring, of course, the actual sign, positive or negative, of it. So 60 degrees, let's use our reference triangle. So we have root 3, 1, and 2. There's 60. Sine of 60 is root 3 over 2. Since we are in the second quadrant, sine is actually going to be positive. So the answer, you don't have to write the positive sign, but I'm just going to emphasize that the answer is positive root 3 over 2. All right. Let's try another one. Let's jump down to number 8 next. Okay. And for number 8, we are looking at cosine of 5 pi over 6. All right. So we're going to keep asking ourselves some of these questions. What quadrant is that located? 5 pi over 6 is just smaller than 6 pi over 6, which of course is 1 pi. So that's going to put me once again in quadrant number 2. So we're working in quadrant 2. 5 pi over 6, being that the denominator is a 6, tells me that we're 30 degrees away from the horizontal. So the reference angle is 30 degrees. So cosine of 30 degrees, let's go ahead and draw that reference triangle again. Cosine of 30 is root 3 over 2. Since we are in quadrant 2, that would make only sine positive. So that means this is going to be a negative answer. Negative root 3 over 2 is the correct answer for cosine of 5 pi over 6. All right, one more, and then we're going to have you try a couple. Tangent of 7 pi over 4. So we'll again continue to answering, where are we located? What quadrant are we located? So since we're talking about fourths, 4 fourths is pi, 8 fourths is 2 pi. So 7 pi over 4 would put me just slightly short of 2 pi, which is a full revolution. So this looks like this is happening in quadrant number 4. Since it's a fourth, it means our reference angle is 45 degrees. So this is what our angle looks like. We're going to need the 45, 45, 90 triangle to answer our next question. Tangent of 45 degrees is 1 over root 2. No, it's not. It's 1 over 1, because opposite over adjacent. So it's 1 over 1, better known as just the number 1. And since we are in the fourth quadrant, ASTC, cosine is positive, which means the answer for this one will be negative. So that'll conclude our sine, cosine, and tangent demo. What we're going to do is do a few more of these, but this time we're going to look at the other three trig functions, and it just adds a little bit of an extra wrinkle into these as we're looking at them. So let's start with number 3, and this one is going to be asking us to find the secant of 5 pi over 4. So once again, let's think about what we need to know here. So 5 pi over 4 is just slightly bigger than 4 pi over 4. Again, that's 1 pi. So it's slightly bigger. That would put me in quadrant number 3. Quadrant number 3 for this one. Okay. The denominator being 4 is telling me that I'm 45 degrees away from the horizontal. So this is the equivalent of secant of 45. Now, I don't know about you. Secant, cotangent might be a little more troublesome to work with, but one way I usually will think about it is, well, if I know what cosine of 5 pi over 4 is, remember that secant is just the reciprocal of cosine. Cosine of 45 degrees is going to be 1 over root 2. So here's our 45 degree angle, 1 over root 2. So the reciprocal of that would just be square root of 2. So the secant of 45 is square root of 2. We are in the third quadrant. Now let's make sure sine, so in quadrant 3, it's tangent and then its reciprocal cotangent are positive. So therefore, this would be a negative answer. The answer would be negative root 2. Let's look at a different one. The next one is cotangent of pi over 3. So pi over 3, thankfully, is a nice, easy one. It's 1/3 pi. That's going to put us in quadrant 1, which is one of the easiest ones for us to work with. Denominator of 3 means that the reference angle is 60. So let's go ahead and use our 30, 60, 90 triangle. Now, I keep regenerating this in the notes here as I'm writing them. You obviously can scroll up or like write them once, and then you just look at the same triangle over and over again. But I'm just redrawing them for simplicity in the video. So cotangent is the reciprocal of tangent. So tangent of 60 is opposite over adjacent. So it's root 3 over 1, which means the answer to this is going to be 1 over the square root of 3. 1 over the square root of 3. Because we're in quadrant 1, all values are positive. So this is a positive 1 over the square root of 3. Let's look at another. Cosecant of 3 pi over 4. So this 3 pi over 4 is just slightly below 4 pi over 4, so that's going to put me in quadrant number 2. Reference angle denominator of 4 means it's going to be 45 degrees. So once again, we're going to use that 45, 45, 90 triangle. Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. Sine of 45 degrees is 1 over root 2, so the reciprocal of that would just be root 2 over 1 or root 2. Since we are in the second quadrant, we use our ASTC. Sine is positive, therefore its reciprocal. Cosecant, which we're working with, is positive as well. So the answer to this one is positive square root of 2. Positive square root of 2. We have one more on this page that we're going to do, and that is secant of 7 pi over 6. Secant of 7 pi over 6. So 7 pi over 6 is just slightly bigger than 6 pi over 6. That's going to put me in quadrant number 3. Denominator of 6 tells me that the reference angle is going to be 30. So let's go ahead and use our 30, 60, 90 triangle. Secant's the reciprocal of cosine. So cosine of 30 is root 3 over 2. So that means this is going to be 2 over root 3. Last but not least, let's talk about our quadrants. Tangent and cotangent are positive in quadrant 3. Therefore, this will be a negative answer. So that'll conclude this tutorial of how we can use other strategies besides memorizing the unit circle. As you can see, you can take any of these answers that we found throughout this video, come back to the unit circle and verify that those answers were indeed correct, especially when I was talking about reference angles and distance from the horizontal axis. Any of these, the unit circle is going to have the answers to everything we talked through. But in this video, our focus was, well, what if we could just memorize a smaller amount of information and just do a little extra thinking to help us get to the finish line. So I hope this video was helpful. Take this and try to practice this more on your own. Good luck with that. And thank you for watching the video.